be honest, we could all really benefit from a counseling intensive, but it is quite an investment, and so that's why it's important to discern at what point is it necessary to utilize that level of intervention versus the more traditional weekly 1-hour counseling sessions. Sometimes it's just about the event. So maybe you are on the verge of burnout. Maybe an important relationship to you is at a point of crisis. Maybe you just went through a traumatic event or in a big transition. All those situations would naturally lead to an intensive being an accurate level of care for the amount of pain and stress that's in your story. But what we really want to look at is the 1-hour weekly counseling session sufficient? Or is the pain and stress within you asking for more, asking to get through your pain and into healing experiences faster? You might find that you're faithfully showing up to that 1-hour counseling session and you're still just kind of barely getting through week to week. You're not thriving, you're just managing, barely making it, hanging on, and that's just no way to live. And so that might be a time to consider the next level of care, which is the intensive. So what's important to know is, what is the difference between them? What's going on here? What is this intensive thing? The primary difference is time and how it's allotted and what our bodies and nervous systems are able to access in the healing experience in those differences of how the time is allotted. So, say for instance, I give you 15 hours of counseling. Well, with the weekly 1-hour sessions, that might look like you showing up every 1 to 2 weeks for 15 times over the course of the next 2 to 6 months, for instance. That can be sufficient, and you can get some movement through that, and that's great. The intensive model would look more like taking those 15 hours and condensing it into 1 week. So why is that different? What happens there? What type of experience do you get in each one? Well, when we look over at the weekly 1-hour sessions, this is what happens. We exit our stressful environment, we enter a contained healing environment, and that takes some time to get our bodies and our nervous systems in that space where we can receive healing. Our bodies are wise and they're aware that before we know it, we've got 10 to 15 minutes left. We're preparing ourselves to go in and re-enter our stressful environment, where then we accumulate more stress over the week or 2 weeks so that we re-enter the next healing session. And so we get little movements. We get momentum, but it's little bits at a time. Maybe that's sufficient, but maybe it's not. Maybe your pain and stress is so big that it's saying, hey, we need to go into this healing more quickly. And that's where the counseling intensive comes in. So if we look toward allotting your 15 hours into that condensed 1 week, we enter the same way. We enter exiting our stressful environment and into this contained healing environment where we get to stay for longer bouts of time. This is kind to our nervous systems because it's actually hard to access this state where we get to heal. Trained therapist is able to use that space to really get into the deeper parts of our wounds and our injuries to realign and to hand healing experiences to those spaces. Now, with an intensive, your nervous system is also aware that I'm wrapping up this first day of this 2 to 3 hour session, and I'm not necessarily going to re-enter my stressful environment again. I'm going to get to come back to this healing space tomorrow. And so the healing agent inside of you that is so wise continues to process and deal with the pain and stress in a healing way as you go home, as you rest, as you sleep, and it's ready to re-enter. And it doesn't take as long to re-enter that healing space the next day. And so over time, over this 5-day period or maybe 10-day period, actually the amount or the degree to which you can enter a healing is exponential. And so when you get to the other side of that 5 and 10-day period, you're walking away with new internal resources, new healing experiences of yourself, maybe in the context of your relationships or whatever your story holds for that time. And then you get to apply those healing experiences to your weekly 1-hour sessions in a way that's not just managing or getting through the week, but is integrating healing into your real everyday life. And this is what we want. Instead of being stuck, we want to be on a trajectory of healing and moving toward thriving more and more. The word intensive could feel pretty intimidating or daunting. There might be a stigma around it, or you might be asking questions. Is my pain and does it necessitate that level of care? But really what we want to do here is normalize it. Anyone and everyone could really benefit from an intensive. We've all got such complex stories and large amounts of pain that need to be worked through in a way that society doesn't naturally hand us. And so what an intensive does is gives us a really unique experience with people who are trained to go in to the roots of where your pain has originated and give that part of you a new experience so that you can walk out different. You can finally feel the relief of healing that you've been trying and going for this whole time through different avenues. So it's a very normal thing to need, to desire, and we want to walk alongside you in it the best that we can.